All right, morena koutou. To everyone here there's no really one in the audience, but also online today too for our last council meeting of 2025. So look, welcome to us all. We have an agenda with some interesting items in it. We're looking to finish up just around lunchtime, so we'll try and get through this in a pretty orderly fashion. Look, just like to thank all the councillors here for your dedication over the past 2 odd months since you've been elected. A lot of induction, you've taken on a lot of learning, additional meetings, so look, really understand that and just like to pass on my thanks for actually attending those meetings as best we can. Also acknowledging, we've definitely got some challenges ahead of us in 2026. Some of those are within the organisation, and I guess others have thrust down on us from the government. But at the end of the day, we'll look at all that positively and aspirationally as we step into the new year. So, with that, we will start with an opening karakia, which we will do together. So, tākina te marama, kia tātou, tākina te aroha, kia tātou, tākina te rangimarie, kia tātou, kia pirongia me te kawa, ko mangatautari, ko kakapuku ngā mauna, ko waikato, ko waipana awa, tihei mauri ora. Right. All right. So apologies, we have an apology from Councillor Marcus Gower for personal reasons. Thank you, Ion. Thank you, Roger. All those in favour? Against? Carries. Thank you very much for that. Any disclosure of members' interests throughout any of the reports? No, there have been none. Thank you. But late items, we do actually have a late item. And I think Zoe is going to put that up on the screen. And it's around a road name. Do I need to read that? Or can we read that? I can read it if you wish. Yep. So the recommendation is that council receives a report on the new private road named at 190 Victoria Road, Cambridge, and agrees to consider it at the council meeting on the 17th of December 2025 as a late item. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Claire. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you for that. We'll get that onto the agenda. Now, confirmation of the order of business. So that the council will confirm the order of the meeting subject to the withdrawal of item 11, the 2025-34 long-term plan amendment, the decision not to amend, and the addition of the late item, request for a new private road change name at 190 Victoria Road, Cambridge, to be taken after item 13, council delegations under December 2025. I'll move that. Joe seconds that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you for that. All right, so now we move into the minutes, confirmation of minutes. Done. Get up here. All right, so Paul for a mover and a seconder. Claire and Dean. Any discussion on those? No, there've been none. I'll put it to the votes. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, thank you very, very much. All right, so now we're on page... All right, so we're here on page 29. Okay, I'll just jump to page 29, sorry. Right, so our first real item on the, substantive item on the agenda is a document signed under delegated authority during the interim election period. Right, so there's a report there on that. Can someone move that and seconder? Leah, Dale Marie? Yep. Thank you for that. And invite Steph to actually speak to that for us initially.
Thank you, Mayor Mike, and morning all. Lovely to see you all on this last council meeting of the year. We're feeling pretty good about that. This is an important process that happens in local government for what we call the interregnum period, when there is no council in place and no mayor in place. All delegated authority is referred to the chief executive, and then I have to report on any matters of substance. And this is really the only matter. And it was relating to the weather event that happened during that period of time. And we had a significant washout on Tiriti Road, and it needed to be restored, and we needed to commission that work. Yeah. At the time, I let people know we're giving updates to people at the time. What I'd just like to mention is that in the new year, Evie Lisa and Brian Hudson will be bringing a paper to council which highlights all of the work that was done under emergency management frameworks. Well, we didn't have a proper emergency management declaration in this district, but we had a number of incidents, particularly in our roads, and that were impacted by the weather. And we have been working through the process of identifying those and identifying funding options for the entire suite of those. And we will bring that to you early in the new year to determine some trade-offs that we'll have to make to be able to pay for those works. That's a really important function of local government, is responding to emergency management events. And one of the things that we will be asking you to consider in your annual plan considerations is how we have a buffer or the ability to pay for emergency management events like that. So in that case, and if we don't have substantive reserves in play at our readiness, how are we going to manage that going forward? And with increasing weather events due to climate change, this is only going to increase, not decrease. And we've been fairly fortunate in this district for a long period of time with a benign weather environment, but it's not like that in future. So that will be something that you'll want to consider as part of the annual plan and the long-term plan considerations about how we are going to fund and finance these weather-related events. So just want to give you a heads up because that came to exec yesterday, and we're doing some work in preparation for you. So that's what the paper is. It's a very normal reporting back to council after an election cycle. Thanks, Mayor Mike. Happy to take your questions.
Yeah, so on that, are there any questions to the explanation? No? Right, so we've had a mover and a seconder. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. All right, so now we're going to the adoption of the annual plan, so page 30 through to 277. So I'd invite Nada Milne and James Graham to come up from, and they can present this.
Morning, councillors. Yeah, I hope this report's fairly self-explanatory in terms of what you're here to do today. So you're here to adopt our 24-25 annual report. That was actually the work program of the prior council. But however, due to various delays with audit and reprioritisation of resourcing, that's happened now. In terms of the process to get to this point, our final draft report went before the prior Audit and Risk Committee to review for any material issues and problems. They reviewed that, and obviously there was continuity into the next council with key members coming back onto that Audit and Risk Committee. On Monday, we took the annual report to Audit and Insurance, where we got a lot of questions and corrections, quite rightly. It's good to have an independent set of eyes across that as well. Our auditor came and spoke and provided an update on the state of the audit report and council's financial policies, non-financial policies. So that all went pretty well. So what we're here to do is adopt. Our auditors can't be here today. They're double booked. So they prioritise coming on Monday. So our Audit Insurance Committee on Monday is making a recommendation to council to adopt the annual report. I'll just quickly actually read the pre-audit report that came in last night from our auditors, so you know that this is an external view and it's not my view of the world. And then I'll get Nada to walk through some changes that we've had to make between issuing of this report through Diligent and today that we've had to make because there was some changes suggested at Audit Insurance, which we've made. And in addition to that, we were still working with audit during the week to get final changes made. So if you're all good with that, Mayor Mike, I'll quickly talk through the letter. Try and keep it quite brief, but I will word it word verbatim, so you know it's from them. So our audit report, we intend issuing an unmodified audit report. We intend issuing an unmodified audit report on 17th December 2025. We are satisfied the financial statements and statement of service performance presents fairly the council's activity for the year and its financial position at the end of the year. Without modifying our audit opinion, we intend to include an emphasis of matter program in our audit report to draw the user's attention to the disclosure and the financial statements, and that would be note 27, which outlines the future of audit delivery. Finalisation of the audit report is subject to receiving signed financial statements and representation letter and completing final director and manager review. The first one we will do after this with you, Mayor Mike, and the CEO. And then we will get that off and that will be completed. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. We have discussed any misstatements that we found with management other than those which were clearly trivial. The misstatements that have been corrected are listed in the representation letter, which you will see in the agenda. We are satisfied that these misstatements are individually and collectively immaterial. We also identified misstatements that were corrected by management. A list of corrected misstatements is available on request. Other report issues. The report sets out all matters that we consider require your attention. Before approving the financial statements and performance information, we have identified for some opportunities for improvement from our audit procedures. So that is the report we bring to audit and insurance every 3 to 6 months around how we're improving the recommendations for audit, which you would have just seen on Monday for those that attend the audit and insurance meeting. So that's how that's monitored over time. These will be shared and discussed with management. None of these recommendations require the council's attention prior to approving the annual report. Thank you. We'd like to thank the council management staff for the assistance they've provided during the audit. Renee Van Zyl, and I think my summary of her conversation on Monday was that it's one of the best audits we've had here in terms of the sign off the annual report, in terms of the process and working with staff. And I've just received the bill and it's the smallest in terms of overruns we've received. So quite good. We've made, and then we'll take any questions.
So there's just been some minor changes from the report that went through the meeting on Monday. On page 27, in the disclosure of the rates increase affordability benchmark, the local government cost index, that was at 2%, but it's 3%. So we've corrected that to align with the annual plan. And then on page 34, current assets and other financial assets, which is note 8. So there's been 1,082,000 moved from financial assets to the investments in CCOs and other assets. So that's just moving it from one note to another, probably just categorizing that more correctly. Also, yeah, so the next one on page 54 is just mirroring that top one. So it's taking it out of that note into the new note with the investments. And then on page 58, note 10, breakdown of financial assets. we included term deposits, so that again relates to that 1082. It's just reclassifying for where it probably sits more correctly. No, page 35, statement of financial position. So we updated the consolidation treatment of the Cambridge Town Hall trade payables and PPE. So that's just to correct the balance sheet for the town hall to do the consolidating in with council. So it's just putting in their figures and then matching it with ours and consolidating those out on the correct lines. And then still on the property plant and equipment on page 75, just updated some wording there around restrictions over council's land and buildings. So we just added in a little disclosure there regarding those. Page 105, Waikato Regional Airport. So there's just a sentence in there regarding the annual report of when they were going to adopt it, but the annual report's been adopted, so it's available on the website now, so that wording has been removed. And then, so that was all audit changes. Then there was the changes from the committee members on Monday. So the financial overview, there was some updating, some comments in there for the development contributions. And then on the rates, we had a conversation about that around that it didn't look right. So we've actually gone back to audit and said we're changing that back to what we had. Yeah, because they're figures. Yeah. And then on page 51, we had just had a little disclosure there and some wording around the chief executive salary there. So we've just deleted a sentence to make it more readable, because I think we're crossing over between the two this year. It was
The two CEOs.
Yeah.
Between Gary and
Yeah,
Steph.
so we just removed
Yeah,
a
it wasn't
little-
clear.
Yeah. Page 168, the average consumption of drinking water per day. So the Puka, we're just noting that the Pukeremu is a mixed use rural scheme. So that's just updating the disclosure. Page 183, our organisation. So we included James's photo. It was
Yeah,
just a
there
little,
was
everyone wants to see what he looks like.
there was a tricky negotiation around image rights.
Was there any airbrushing?
Did you say hairbrushing?
Yeah. That's all.
And so the importance of this is what we sent to council was the draft annual report. Whole lot of stuff's gone on since, and what you're signing, what will be signed off by the mayor and Steph today will reflect these changes as a work paper between what you've been issued in diligent and what will be signed off today. Is that really clear? Cool. Open up for any questions through you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thanks, James. Thanks, Naylor. So look, questions, I think if we go to, give us the page so we can quickly, because there's a lot of pages here. So questions, so we can all jump on the right page and then let's get them in. So Claire will help me. So we'll start with Claire.
So I'm on page 57, the financial overview, because I have two questions or comments about that. I might start with the added disclosure about the development contributions that was on your on that slide, because I just wanted to understand that a bit more actually, James, because what it stated in the original wording that was in the version that went to the audit, it's the track changes version actually that went to a previous audit and risk committee. Yeah, it said that there's been a delay in development contribution receipts of 4.9 million, lower than budget. But when I was going through the cost of service for the individual activities that council has, and you're looking at the LTP figures, so your 4.9 that's in there, it's saying there was a difference between our annual plan that we budgeted for and our actual of only 4.9 million. But when you look at the change from the LTP that we had forecast for the same years, it's actually $27 million. And so, yeah, I can send you the photo. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
doesn't sound right to me, councillor Clear.
The
Yeah.
LTP is the 2131, so
Yeah.
it's old.
Yeah.
We're still
Oh.
referring
Yeah.
to the.
To the old LTP.
Yeah, the
So
old, so
it's-
instead of,
It
yeah,
was
the one
set
that,
4 years ago.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right, that one.
Yeah.
Whereas the current one, I think
It's
it's
out of
13
date.
million,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
total
Yeah,
collection in 24, 25 from memory, right?
yeah, yeah. So all I'm saying is
Yeah.
that, yes, the annual plan, it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah.
But actually, when you look at what we were considering, when we
Yeah.
set those budgets, yeah, over the longer term, we've actually got a pretty serious deficit, yeah, which will have knock-on effects, I think. Yeah, that's all, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I think, yeah, like the LTP that we're still going off the old 2131 because we skipped.
oh, no,
So we're looking at really historical
right, yeah.
information, and there's been a lot that's happened in the
Yeah.
economy since.
Yeah, and also we actually had pushed out a lot of capital work as well, which I think, good, yeah, okay. all
So
right.
you-
So that's helpful, actually.
A couple of offsets there, Claire. So you're right, the capital delays. And the other thing is we rebaseline the growth rate for year 1 to 3 of this LTP to 0.8%.
Oh, right.
Which
yeah,
so,
right,
and we've already exceeded that last year, right?
yeah,
At 1.2 from memory. So by changing the quantum, I don't know, obviously wasn't here for 21, so I don't know what the amount there is, but I was sure it was higher than 0.8.
okay, cool. And then the other point I just wanted to make is that you do mention on that same page of where we stand, so that's further down the page. The first bullet point is we ended the year with a $16 million operating deficit, so that's not, it's not a cash deficit. But actually, other years, we've actually said what our cash position has been as well. Yeah, so I don't know if that's a requirement. It probably isn't a requirement. Because often, if we've had a bit of a cash surplus, we've actually applied that to try and reduce the rates in the subsequent year. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, so we ended up, you're quite right. We ended up with small cash surplus. Because you're right, the account adjustments are all because of getting ready for the LTP and the revaluation of assets. So I think I explained that on Monday. But we did end up with a small cash surplus. So we did end up in the positive in terms of cash. And yeah, we've walked through that quite a bit previously on what that contributed. But as I said, yeah. So, and that's actually in this report somewhere that there is a cash surplus because I've read it.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you what of the 300 odd pages where it is, but it's
Oh, I
definitely
didn't
there.
see it. But,
Yeah.
okay, cool. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Pip.
Just a sort of a broad comment and just want clarification. This is obviously has come from Audit New Zealand. Can you tell me, as a bit of a newbie, the difference between Audit New Zealand and the Officer of the Auditor General? And in the last election campaign, there was sort of talk about there was opinions presented either by Audit New Zealand or the Officer of the Auditor General to suggest that there was some major issues, and I'd just be interested in your comments as to sort of the difference between the two and whether or not there is still considered some sort of major issues.
You'd need to be a bit more specific about what those issues are. Are you saying there's issues between AOG and the auditors, or?
I'd be interested.
Or in
So
general
what
as
is
a
it? What
sector
is the
level?
fundamental difference between what the Office of the Auditor General is commenting on and what is happening out of Audit New Zealand? I understand the Audit New Zealand perspective, which is effectively an external auditor saying, yeah, the figures are true and correct, but where does the Officer of the Auditor General come in?
No, to that step,
The Office of the Auditor General is the overarching office,
Yeah.
an independent body that's set up by the state, and they oversee all of the audit of government-related bodies for New Zealand PIP. There are 3 companies, as I understand it, providing audit services to local government. They're private companies. One of those is Audit New Zealand. So we have currently, they are currently our independent auditor of council. If we chose to change our auditor, we have to apply to the Office of the Auditor General to get that approved in local government. So the Office of the Auditor General is providing overarching audit guidance for New Zealand. Is that clear? The companies that provide services to them must be giving effect to the directives from the Office of the Auditor General.
Yeah.
And so therefore our audits are all in line with where Audit New Zealand anticipate the Office of the Auditor General is looking to determine what good audit standards look like. That is not to say that there's often a difference of opinion and there is a conversation going on between the Office of the Auditor General and their directives and the auditing companies and what they're finding and what they're reporting on, and those of us who are being audited and what we experience in the real world. For example, one of the disagreements we had with Audit New Zealand last year was we felt if we left waters in our LTP, the community could see the pressure it placed on our balance sheet and our ability to afford waters infrastructure for our district. The Audit New Zealand wanted us, from an accounting perspective, to take that out of our long-term plan document. Council has decided that in the interests of community scrutiny, it was actually more effective to leave it in the document. So that was one of the reasons why we had a qualified opinion on our long-term plan, which council has decided that actually the accounting perspective was outweighed by the community good perspective of that. So it's guidance from Audit New Zealand, it's guidance from the Office of the Auditor General that we take on board, but it is to give that very robust, transparent comfort to the community that we are running a thorough, prudent business and we are doing the things that we say we're going to do and we're following very good accounting and financial standards. Does that make sense? So yeah, and growth is one of the issues that we're really challenged by because we're experiencing growth in a particular way. It's why we invited both of those different officers to come with us on our recent tour of the district, because we feel that they are still coming to terms with, for example, the sub-regional impact of growth, as opposed to just looking at growth in our district boundaries, that we need them to understand it better at a sub-regional level to be able to then apply accounting or auditing standards to our books. So hence we are working on a pathway with them to help them understand the growth pressures we're facing.
Thank you. Do I take it therefore that we no longer have a qualified audit opinion?
So we received a qualified audit opinion on the LTP PIP. This is the annual report for the year 24-25, and there is an unqualified audit opinion on our annual report. So it says in the last year, you have done everything you have said you are going to do. You meet all audit standards, tick. The qualified audit opinion for the long-term plan was based on a couple of very specific things, and they will stand. And what we hope to do is get a clean audit on our new LTP set in 27 to 37. Yeah, so that when the next LTP comes up, we are seeking to address those issues by working through those continuously with the auditors. Is that helpful? Yes. Plain language?
Cool. Hey, I just want to correct a fact too about the cash surplus, Claire. It's not in here. It was in the 4-month F&C report. So I had reported, you'll have to forgive me. This thing's massive.
I thought it would have been in the track changes version. It wasn't.
Yeah, no, it was in the 4-month report that went to F&C last Wednesday. Thank you.
It's great to accept something where you're wrong, actually, James. I can't remember it ever happening before.
It's hard to believe, eh?
Right, that's a very good question, Pip. It helps give clarity for a lot of people around the table too. Hey, any other questions to us? Yeah, Joe. Yes.
Sorry, this is just a clarifying question for me. I'm on page 26, just a quick one though. It's about the rates affordability cap and that 65%. Can you just tell me why 65% was chosen? And is that number reviewed through the LTP? Is that something that, just considering we're tracking quite close to it, at what point do we kind of review that number?
Yeah, it is
Okay.
reviewed through the LTP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
And
local
that's set
government.
by,
Yeah.
Set by local government.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Ian,
So I don't have a question, but I do have a statement. It's a bit more general. It's nothing to do with the annual report. So I'll be voting against this. That's not because I have any problem with the annual report. It's because we got given 600 pages of reading on Friday. And by any moderate forecast, that's 50 hours of reading. And I don't care who you are, that's not possible to do in the time frame that we were given to do it in. So I prioritized reading the forward-looking things. I did not read this report in full because it's, you know, partially to do with business that went before. I would have liked to have read it, excuse me, but I didn't have the time. So since I have not read it, I cannot vote for it. That's all.
thanks for observation, Ian.
Can I just make a comment on that? I totally understand what you're saying is you can only imagine how long it's taken us to put together. We'd much rather it be shorter, but unfortunately statutory requirements require. I just want to make the observation that the reason we have external auditors is to provide this council and the Audit and Assurance Committee certainty around that our financial systems and processes and reporting are up to scratch and meet not only the financial accounting standards, but local government legislation. That's what this report does. I will, if you're okay, Mayor Mike, I will send this around afterwards. I'm not sure if you sent it last night. I know it came in late. So if you're fine, I'll send this to the rest of the councillors that they can read it themselves. It's not very long, it's 4 pages. But I just want, I totally accept the point. This is why we have the external auditors to assure EMs that we're doing our job and checks. But I totally take your point.
Monty.
Just following from Ian's comment there, when I first got to council 3 years ago, this was pretty much the first thing I had to do too, approve an annual report that I didn't know anything about. And I hear you, it's an uncomfortable position to be in. Back then, I was one of only 2 new members though, so this time we've got a total change. So it's, from my point of view, very unfortunate that this didn't go through the previous council. It was external audit, that was the problem. So what we did about that is it went to the previous ARC committee where that was the established ARC committee in the last triennium, who made a bunch of sort of recommendations through to council that we were happy. And then it's gone to the new Risk and Assurance Committee where the same things happened. So I just want to try and give people a little bit of comfort that that's been through the old ARC, the new RAC, and the external auditors, you know, to give you a degree of comfort. It's far from ideal, but it wasn't the council's fault. This one was external audit. So it's an uncomfortable position to be in, I hear you. But from my perspective, like signing this off now is not an unreasonable thing to do given that history, okay? Particularly the clean audit.
And I mean, as for staff member, this has not been easy for us because it's come at the same time as LTP, getting ready for the annual plan, everything. We would have much preferred it being completed at the end of last council. But to be fair, I want to be clear, audit had valid reasons of why they couldn't commit the manpower, womanpower to do it.
Claire.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to respond also to what Ian has said. Well, firstly, it isn't 700 pages of individual pages actually, because there was a repeat or duplication of about 230 pages for the annual report. Okay, so that came down to 480 pages. And on top of that, we can, one of the practices was that we wanted to have a protocol in place where we would get track changes version. So I had to request a track changes version of that 230 page document. So that really reduces the time it takes to read a document that's already been through the system. And so I suppose this is a plug that's the reason why we should be taking advantage of the technology we have like track changes to really reduce the amount of, I suppose, focus time that you need to apply to an agenda. And then a lot of the items, yeah, the summary is enough to read. Yeah, so again, you don't have to read closely every page, but of course that is a risk. That's a judgment call that every elected member has to make. Yeah, Yeah, but I do take, I accept your reasons for voting against, because if we're expected to make good decisions, yeah, we do have to be really familiar with the material. Yeah. I'd just like to say that reading the annual report, I always try to do a really thorough job of it, because it's not just actually a financial snapshot. It does summarise all the things that happened this year, and as an elected member, it does give you a much broader view of the challenges that we're facing and some of the decisions that we made and what the outcomes were and things like that. Like, you learn a lot from it, yeah. But yeah, there's different, I accept that different elected members have got different needs or different yeah, reasons for wanting, yeah, to get stuff out of the agenda. Thanks.
Thanks, Claire. And look, just to always remember, the three options that we all have is to vote for something, is to vote against something, or is to abstain from something. So you can consider, you can consider those three. Right, good discussion though. Very good. Any other questions on this? Right, so Nada and James, thank you. You can vacate your chairs. Thank you. So for right now, all I'm going to call for is a mover and a seconder to this report. Claire and Monty moved it. Thank you. Now invite any discussion on it. Yes, Ian.
So look, I'll follow up on that, and, you know, note to James and Nada, it was no reflection on the annual report whatsoever. And I'll take your note on board as well, Claire, which would take it down to a mere 20 to 30 hours worth of reading, which you can't do more than 6 hours of that a day, no matter who you are, because at that point, you're just reading and you're not thinking. So I'm afraid my point stands. I think in particular with the annual report, it would be different, to Monty's point, if you've been involved in the creation of it, because then you know what's in it. That's the first time I'd ever seen that document. So that was a completely different thing. So, and yeah, I had not checked our standing orders to see if we could abstain. So I know it's not generally available. I hadn't gone to check ours, I must admit, because this was all last night. So I will be abstaining rather than voting against. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Ian. Monty.
Look, just following that, this is a technical point. There are 6 new members around this table, I believe. And Marcus, an incumbent from the last triennium, is not here. So what would be the implications of failing to adopt this annual report?
Talking to James, I'm just going to ask me and Mike if James can come back to the table, but we've got statutory timeframes which we have to adopt the annual report within. And a number of councillors are, but every year, every time there's an election, this is a problem. So it's coincided post-COVID, the audit industry is really impacted. They don't have enough capability and capacity across the industry. That, I don't mean to say capability, but capacity. And so we're really constrained in the service we can get from our auditors because of their constraints. And as we said, this has been impacted by a long LTP process as well. So there's a number of councils across the country where new councillors are being asked to approve an annual report of a triennium that they weren't involved with. So I just want to let you know that you're not alone, but there are consequences to not accepting the annual report, and we do have statutory timeframe in which we have to accept it. Most of all, I would think it would be political and community reputational risk that we are not following good due process as local government should. Claire, before I come to your question, can I just invite James to respond?
Oh, there's a couple of things. There's the statutory and, as you say, the community impact of this. This is the council's contract that we rate on to deliver a year of work program. So by not adopting it, we're saying there's something materially wrong with either the audit or we don't agree with what's been delivered. That's how the messaging would be received by our community. That's how what I would see as a ratepayer sees an issue. Now, if I go to the regulatory piece of this, we've talked about the Auditor General. That we will already be reported that we're late in signing off. That's not a big issue because probably about 50 or 60% of the councils ever since COVID are in that boat due to audit capacity. But we're probably likely to go on a watch list as a result of this, and we will have a significant amount of work to work with all of the general auditors on how we fix this. And I've got to be honest, I don't know what that looks like because I've never seen it happen before. So
I
personally-
suspect that LGFA would take an interest as well too, James, the people that we borrow.
Yeah, that's correct. That would be one of the issues with our funding. We would have to have a conversation with LGFA because we not only have to do monthly management reporting as part of our covenants with LGFA, as they will get copies of our annual report and the likes. Also, we also need to think about our external raters as well, Fitch. This potentially could impact our ability to borrow at the rates we do. So I'll just say this right now, it's very significant.
Right, Claire and then Pip.
Thank you. The point I wanted to make actually is it's a very long report. There must be a way to make it shorter. You know, like I think a lot of it's driven by legislated requirements or what the Office of the Auditor General has stipulated. But you could argue, why can't we have, some basic, KPIs, we've done it, we haven't done it, you know, and.
Yeah, Claire, I think the whole sector is, there's a process reviewing long-term plans at the moment. We're all saying that this has become overly complicated, overly onerous, the financial cost to the community of running long-term plans. I mean, there's a balance to be had, and I am channeling former councillor Andrew Brown at the moment, who would say that there is a need to provide the community with very strong prudence measures and accountability and transparency. But it appears that the intent of what was long-term plans back in 2002 and the complexity of audit and what they are auditing has just got too onerous, too complex and too costly for the ratepayer. And there is a process going on in the sector to try and draw this to the government's attention, the minister's attention, the OAG's attention to try and simplify this. We completely agree. But at the moment, what you're seeing is what we're required to do.
Yeah.
Thanks. And James, just a response there.
Yeah, look, so I don't know if the new councillors remember the induction, we talked about the monitoring. And the induction, the financial induction, we talked about the monitoring. So the way this normally works, right, and the way it will work when you set your next annual plan, when we work through this one and the likes, is the Finance and Corporate Committee every 2 months monitors the financial performance. Every 4 months and 8 months, we have a full report, which is like a mini annual report, right? So that's provided to give you comfort over the course of the 12 months. So when we hit the statutory requirement that we have to do, you already have 70 or 80% of the piece of the puzzle, then the extra assurance for yourself is our external audit review that actually the systems and processes and our financial policies underneath and the compliance with generally accepted accounting principles are being followed. So that process has happened. So if I was a new councillor, I would probably step back this, and I'm not telling anyone which way to go, and ask my existing councillors, are you happy with what's happened during the delivery of the plan in terms of the monitoring? And we have an external audit opinion. So that's the approach I would take to this issue. And I fully accept as a new councillor, this is very, very difficult. It's not your work plan, but unfortunately you have to sign it off or not.
Thanks for that, James. We're going to go to Pip and then Dale Marie.
Just a comment. I mean, if we were a public listed company and you're a director of a public listed company, you'd be relying on your auditors to provide you those unqualified opinions. And on that basis, you would then sort of take legal action, you know, to those auditors if the accounts weren't correct. So on that basis, you know, I presume we have a sort of a similar type of arrangement. We are relying on them for accuracy. And therefore, we can at least be covered that we have had somebody professionally look at those from an auditing perspective. So, yeah, I mean, I understand what we're talking about, but at the end of the day, that's why we have, you know, who audits the auditors? Well, the answer is probably the Office of the Auditor General, and we know that we are being sort of being properly reviewed. So, on that regard, you know, I'm happy, but also on the basis that we have sort of really professional auditors making sure we are compliant both statutorily and sort of financially. Thank you.
Thank you, Pip. Dale Marie.
Kia ora tātou. I'm just going first. Who was in the LGNZ online Zoom last night? one person. Then Dean, you would have seen that we are not the only council that are dealing with the same questions that James has got on the table today. And from watching Mayor Het, the Mayor of Tairāwhiti, talk through a lot of what we're going through today, and there were things that were brought up around legal stuff that has put different bodies in binds, and we were talking the same stuff in that hui last night. So I'm not trying to mansplain for you, e hoa, as one of the re-elected people here, but we are all paddling, and I'm saying many of us are paddling in the same waka, going on the same trajectory that government has got us going on right now. And from what I heard last night at that LGNZ hui, is that LGNZ are going to do their bloody best to advocate on our behalves. And I know that there are a lot of people around the country that want to get rid of LGNZ, but I think if we can really back them to what they're doing, they're going to be pushing back to government for us. So, and I would suggest that everybody attend those hui. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, Marie. Right, we've got Shane and then Roger, and then I think our time's probably come to an end.
You know, I understand, Ian, where you're coming from, and I always understand Pip as well. So my view on this was that we were heavily involved in this discussion on Monday. So to me, it's like a repeat of what we did on Monday. So we have that advantage of that, and we had the auditors there, and we had their assurance at that. So in terms of governance, you know, we've got to rely on the auditors. But there's an element of trust on the councillors that were here over the last 3 years to see their reaction to the report and rely on them on our behalf to say, yes, it's acceptable to them. They've experienced it and they've got that knowledge. So I'm going to be supporting it based on that logic.
Thank you. And Roger.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I can totally understand where you're coming from, Ian. But just to add to the discussion that we had on Monday, we did have a very good conversation with the auditor. And in fact, we had a session with the auditor with no staff present. So we actually had the opportunity to, and we can't tell you what that was because obviously we've got to respect the fact that that was totally in committee, but it was really an excellent discussion and there were some real questions asked and answered by the auditor. So yeah, as a past term councillor, I think the previous discussion that we've had on the document and the changes that we asked to be implemented before it came to ARC, I'm sorry, not ARC, risk and assurance. And we probably had a little bit more time to read it through the risk and assurance agenda that came out as well. So but I can also agree with you. It does take a lot of time to read because I know the amount of time that I spent on reading the document. So, yep.
All right. Hey, really good discussion. Okay, solid discussion and it's sort of interrogated to where we're at. And it's really good that people appreciate and can understand different opinions because every single one of them has been valid. So, but picking up on what Monty said, and I guess what Roger's reinforced also, this has been, I guess, through several gatekeeping processes, thank you, to arrive here. And I think particularly after what happened with the LTP and what didn't go quite so well there, the organisation as a whole, including the elected members, have been really vigilant on this. And the words unqualified is really important, and that's come through. Hey, the job's been done. It's also saved us on previous years. It sounds like it saved us some money, you know, in terms of what we have spent in the past. Right, so $60,000, which is, you know, I don't know, it's point something of a rate because it's straight out of OPEX. So look, well done there. And just to acknowledge the staff, Nada, James, Yolanda, and all the other staff that are in behind this, and the people that have sat on ARC and now the risk and assurance committees, for all your work throughout the year. And it was good to have that discussion with the auditors, Renee, on Monday. To be honest, it was really good to get that assurance. And you can see the changes that have been made that were presented up on the board at the start of the meeting. So with that, there's a few things now. Pages A to G. It's on page, letters A to G on page 31. So we did a move and second, didn't we, at the start? Yeah, you've moved and seconded, but what we now to do is put it to the vote. And if you want anything apart from voting for it and you want your name recorded, please just let us know. That's a decision that you can make. All right, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Those abstaining?
One final point, Mike. Look,
Yeah.
we talked about trust and openness and willingness to change your mind. And I'm not one for flip-flopping. My wife will tell you that she is determined and I am stubborn, and there is some truth in that. But yeah, my point stands on the volume of information that we're given and the time to meaningfully consume it. But I also would hate for it to, the points were well made and well taken. So I'm happy to vote for.
Thank you, Anne. It's teamwork makes the dream work. But the accountability is still there. So, hey, well done, everyone. So, look, we now move to our next item, which is the meeting schedule for 2026. It's on page 278 to 283. And I'll invite Joe Greed to come up.
Morning. So the purpose of this report here today is to ask you to consider adopting your meeting schedule for 2026. It's based on the approach we did in 2025, and in terms of having those alternate months for our strategic planning and policy, service delivery, and finance and corporate committee meetings. It's got a slight change from this year in the fact that we're looking to hold service delivery and finance and corporate on separate days and alternate months. There are 2 times in the calendar year, which is when you're looking at your 4-month and your 8-month report, when finance and corporate will actually be after council. That's just to allow that reporting process to happen in time. Just to note, you won't see the community board meetings on this schedule because they actually adopt their own meeting times depending on what their needs are. So that's covered, but we will produce for your information a calendar that will go out to you that will show when their meetings are. So they're not on there for the purposes just for you adopting your own particular meetings today. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, sure. Roger.
I wondered if, could you give us an indication of when the community board meeting is probably going to be? Because my personal feedback from some of the members that had to attend the community board meetings after a full day of council meeting was quite a strain for them. Is it intended that the community board meetings continue as Wednesday evening?
No, they've actually, both community boards have already met and adopted their meeting schedule, and so they've both gone with Tuesdays. So they're in the 3rd and the 4th, predominantly the 3rd and the 4th week of the month on a Tuesday.
Right. Well, that was well brought up because that was mentioned as an issue, particularly those people sitting on them and staff, wasn't it?
May I continue with another?
Sure. Another question.
No, I'll leave it until we have discussion.
Any other questions for Joe? Oh, all right. right, there might be just one thing we're looking at there, so we'll just give it a, Joe, or yours?
Well, just a point to note, I've been asked to clarify that you've got no meetings in January, as well as July.
Page
yeah.
279, in the middle of the page, it says council and workshop days are held every month with the exception of July. It should say January and July, just for clarity.
And just noting that there is one meeting in July, which is a finance and corporate towards the end of the month. So that's sitting on the 29th of July.
So the resolution can actually stay the same? It's actually, all right, fine. Thank you. Right, any other questions for Joe? Ian?
And I suspect this might be the question that Roger held, and it's probably for discussion time, but in terms of considering a Friday, not a Wednesday, or another day of the week for, because so on page 200 and something, 31, 32, council meetings, committee meetings and workshop days should be a Wednesday as much as possible. I know that was something that we talked about changing. So I'm guessing now is the time to talk about changing that in debate time, but I don't know if this is a how long is a piece of string question, Joe, but if we were to change it to another day of the week, say a Thursday or a Friday, which I think was the target, right? If we were moving it back to way.
I'm not going to comment on that until we get into debate because,
Okay.
yeah.
Can Joe comment on what that affects procedurally, or should we hold it for debate?
No, totally. You can totally ask that, yes.
Just in terms of Fridays, and I would need to go and check the Waikato Regional Council to see what their schedule is that they have actually got in their agenda. But what they try and do with a lot of your joint committees is they aim for some of them to be they target Mondays and Fridays, because then a lot of councils in the district have their other meetings between Tuesday and Thursday. So they find that if they target their joint committees on a Monday and Friday, then that helps with availability of those members to be able to go and attend those joint committees. So that's the only thing really about Fridays.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just make a contribution
Yeah,
to
please.
inform your debate? There's the implication, as Joe has said, it's not just regional council though, there's future-proof meetings and other meetings that the mayor gets pulled to, and to Joe's point, all of those try and schedule them on a Monday or Friday. There's mayoral forums to try and leave the middle of the days. There's also it's the procedural, but there's machinery
That's the bit I was
of
really
the
getting at, Steph.
organisation and behind it that we've also taken into account, and the process in behind it that's required to bring good papers to you, which don't happen overnight, as you can imagine.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
the machinery's preference is a Wednesday or a Thursday, if I might say so. Yeah.
Right, anything else for Joe? Before I release you for now? All right, so can I, just to get this up for discussion, can I get a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Ian. Thank you. All right, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Now we'll discuss or debate the paper. So I'll start with Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yes, my question was very similar to Ian's in terms of perhaps considering that we did move from a Wednesday to either a Thursday or a Friday. I think going back to when we had meetings on a Tuesday, I can understand that there was a challenge with some councillors putting in heaps of questions over a weekend, like I'll put my hand up for that one, and actually there being a limited amount of time for the staff to prepare answers ready for the discussion around the table. And I think that the extended time to either a Thursday or a Friday would, I think, possibly be an advantage, because that would give more time for that to occur. I certainly felt a personal challenge, but I'm only one councillor, with the Wednesday meetings, because a Wednesday meeting will mean that I'll have to resign from another organisation because they meet on a Wednesday anyway, which is unfortunate. But as I say, I'm only one person. But if there was an opportunity to move to Thursday, I think that extended time for putting through questions and getting answers in time for good debate, I think would be an advantage.
Thanks for those comments, Roger. Pip.
We talked about openness and transparency, and sort of certainly, I know the Cambridge News, for example, were pushing for Tuesday so they could, meet their deadline, which therefore hopefully improves sort of communication. Are we therefore saying that Tuesdays are definitely out, despite the fact that that may break our desire to openly communicate and be transparent?
Monday to Friday are all in. That's what we're going to discuss, and hopefully we're going to come up with one of those 5 days. So there's no hours are in, but to get paid, we just have to meet. So it's right. Any other? All right, Dean.
Just in relation to the comment that Pip made, and I've said it before, I don't think we should schedule ourselves around media particularly. I see we've got the Waikato Times here today. They're a daily paper, so that shouldn't be an issue. In terms of good local media, they started off as a Friday paper. It's them that has changed their deadlines and schedule, not us. So if they want to cover us, then they should sort it out. I don't think it's up to us to do it. Tuesday is obviously not a good day in terms of staff and everybody else. I'm open for either a Wednesday or a Thursday. I wouldn't want Friday. I'm busy getting ready to go to the beach.
Kia ora, Del Marie, sorry, I jumped into you, sorry.
Waimari, Councillor Taylor. I suppose I don't have a question for us or comments to us. I've got a question to Steph. How does this affect the operations and the staff changing again?
Sorry, touched it, didn't put it on. Still learning. We're here to provide good public policy advice, to be the advisors to council. So we will go with whatever the direction of councillors make. It would be our preference to have a Wednesday or a Thursday, and we can adjust and accommodate either of those. Outside that becomes more challenging for us. We're not saying no, but we would find that more challenging. But between a Wednesday and a Thursday, I'm looking around the team, and I think that we can ably be agile and adaptable and move for either of those days, whatever works both best for councillors. But we would go with whatever the direction is.
Sorry, supplementary. Any cost if we changed?
No, not between those two. Yeah, no. What the cost is in driving is more and more meetings. That's where cost comes and resource use comes in.
We've got Ion and then Liz.
So I'm going to go back slightly to the previous point, but say, there was obviously a discussion around this in the previous triennium, and Wednesday was the day that was landed on. Not picking on anyone, but someone who was here at the time. I'm assuming there was some solid rationale why that day was landed upon. For those of us who weren't here, would someone care to sort of give us the key takeaways of why we landed on it?
So there was we did a piece of research, Ian, to look into the cadence of meetings. We found that we were in the top third of the number of council meetings that we were having, and committee meetings and workshops. So we were meeting a lot. So we did a big piece of reference. 33% of what was coming to council were information only. So there was a lot of information coming in as 4 weeks after the fact. It was all historical, etc. So we looked at both cadence of meetings, we looked at the kind of material that was coming to council, and we looked at the day of the week and how the machinery was able to adjust that. And we were getting a lot of questions and driving into the weekend. Staff were working weekends to try and meet demand. And then it came down to a Wednesday and Thursday. And then it was, as often as just a general feel for what was going to work best for most people around the table. There were slightly different views, and some people had a Wednesday and a Thursday, and ultimately it was sort of a general call about which of those would work best for most people. So a lot of research, a lot of evidence, and then a judgment call at the end.
Right, thanks for the explanation. I think that's definitely accurate. Liz.
Just as a new councillor, just the amount of emails we get flooded to us Is there any way we can prioritise some of the stuff? Because really reading emails about dogs pooing in the park and all this sort of stuff coming through our emails, the volume of stuff is just,
Yeah, I hear that. It's probably a separate discussion. I do hear that, and maybe that's something we could bring up during EM time or something. So yeah, I hear that, Liz. But probably a discussion, not quite for this. Shane.
I'm hearing that as a mayor that you have responsibilities at lots of meetings on Fridays. So if our meeting was on a Wednesday, does that mean that gives you Thursday to prepare for a Friday meeting, for example, or have discussion with staff about the Friday meeting? And some of these meetings, especially with these new changes from government, are going to be quite meaty. So a bit of prep time is probably a good thing. So is that logic sound in terms of pushing us towards a Wednesday?
It's actually not something I'd thought of, because at the moment I've been focused on the day. But maybe the other side of Christmas. Well, I hear what you're saying. And look, from what I'm understanding, the mayors will be getting together quite frequently around a whole range of issues. So, but I don't want just me to be a catalyst for a Thursday or a Friday, but I thank you for your understanding of that. And it is something I'll just have to work into my week. But whatever happens there, I believe I could work that in. Yeah, and look, what Roger was alluding to is we went to a Wednesday, so staff could actually answer the questions and have a bit more time away from the weekend. Hey, on the table, it sounds like a Wednesday or a Thursday. It sounds like there's no cost of it. There's no negative or positive from staff, which day it is. We've picked up and you've listened to us in terms of separating out service delivery and finances. So there's not downtime. If a meeting finishes early, we're sitting here for hours, really, which for people who are semi-working is not optimal. It's allowed, I guess, some more times for workshops after those two subcommittee meetings, for instance, too. So I think all those are like really efficient. So it really does get down to the recommend. I think we're talking about a Wednesday. Do we stick with a Wednesday or do you want to try a Thursday? So do you want to stick with the status quo or go to a Thursday? I'm personally, yeah. Do you want to do a hand thing? Is that going to be easiest? All right. Drum roll. All right. A Wednesday.
Joe, what do you? I'm going to read this.
Yeah,
Hang on.
good.
One, I've got two. You rang me last week.
7, so that's 7, including Marcus.
6.5. All right. Yeah.
We concede.
All right. So, yeah. So the Thursdays have to be not as many, surely.
Oh, there won't be.
Right. Hands up for, right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's close.
We'll martyr ourselves.
Mate. All right.
Roger's got his hand.
All right, Roger.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's responding to the question about could one of us previous term councillors perhaps give some indication of what the discussion was. And I think the one thing that came through to me in discussing with the whole group of councillors was the fact that some of the committee meetings were every 2 months, and that they felt there was a wee bit of a lack of connection with that particular topic of discussion. And there would have been a preference, I think, for each of those key committees to be every month. And it kind of kept the information flow, whereas to not discuss anything for 2 months was seen to be, I think, a little bit of a challenge to some of us. So I'd perhaps be interested in the comments from other returning councillors as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I hear what you're saying, Roger. Of course, we aren't meeting, as frequently as we used to. We did used to have all our big committees meeting on a monthly basis. So we went to the 2-monthly cycle and had the radar, on the radar sort of update. So I think that with a bit of tweaking, that's acceptable to me. I think we could use the radar thing a bit better, or have a bit more information there. I'm not saying I've got the answer to that. But what I did want to say though is that I am a bit concerned about SP&P frequency because I know what the workload is for the long-term plan. Now, I think there's been one extra meeting put in, is that right? Kirsty's nodding, but I'm wondering if we actually might need to put more in because I mean, there's a lot of work in that. I accept there has been a reduction in the level of information we do get, but I'm hoping that, I think there was a commitment to try and look at on the radar and try to just beef that up a bit, or something, and we haven't had a discussion about what that would look like yet, and I guess it's really important though that if elected members feel that something's happening in the community that they would like to elevate in some way, in a formal way, that we make sure that we can do that. So we've tried to be more flexible as what can go into committee agendas. Before that was quite rigid. And so that is an avenue if we feel that there is something that really does need the whole group's attention. But I don't know if you want to say more about that, Steph or Mike.
I think it's we've talked a lot, as you see, Claire, about continuous improvement, and we're trying different things and we're looking to be more adaptable and responsive as a whole organisation, both for you as governors and your constituents and we as a team supporting you. So we'll look for continuous improvement on the radar. We're looking at ways in which we can get a much faster response to questions through that, how that becomes more visible as we already have started to do. And there's a lot more work going on amongst you as the chairs committee to be more responsive, have your committee work programs planned out, but then between you all, how you might address and be more responsive to issues coming through. But also how we as the organisation can support that conversation in an informed and evidence-based way, and understanding there's some practicalities in behind that. But I think it's a process of continuous improvement, absolutely. And having free and frank discussion. Often, I appreciate this is live, but this is a very formal structure in which conversations can happen. It's not the only way in which conversations between elected members and the organisation can take place. And obviously Mike's always available and he constantly repeats that to you all, to raise issues with and to try and to table things if they do need to come into the chamber. Otherwise, there's other means in which we can support you with current issues.
Thanks, I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to end with, if you did want to go to more frequent committee meetings, that reading burden is a lot more because each of those meetings had between 100 and 300 pages to read. So that has been one of the benefits of this current, I suppose, form that we've got, is that there has been a reduction in formal reading, definitely.
Yeah, it definitely felt like at the back half of last year, we were, for whatever reason, we were meeting a lot. I am.
Yeah, a different angle of questioning, it was to the frequency question. Question back to you, Steph, and your team. Because I look at that cadence and it seems reasonable to me, but I guess the real question is, does the frequency of those committees hold up your ability to get decisions made as an organisation? That's the driving thing.
At the moment, I believe it's working really well. We're very comfortable with that cadence. We looked at different things. We picked up where there might be anomalies, Ian, and trialled for a while, and we didn't find any of those really appeared or became frequent flyer problems. So actually, I'm looking at the organisation and saying, actually, it's really worked for us, and it's allowing us to actually get on and do the work of the decisions of council, as opposed to just in the that process of feeding meetings. So that's from a productivity perspective, it's really helpful as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions before? All right, so hey, thanks for that. Again, good debate. So basically all those in favour? Against? Carries. All right, so Thank you for that. It is now, sorry? So we just moved A through C? Yep, page, yep, 278. Sorry, was I a bit economical with my, usage there, sorry. So yes, just for clarity, we moved A through C, which was a recommendation on page 278 of the agenda. Right, we've got morning tea now. Because we took an item off, I think we still will take 20 minutes. So if we are ready to start back in here at 10:02 would be fantastic. Thank you. We'll make, oh, sorry, yep, thank you very much, sorry. Right, we'll make a start. We just had a brief morning tea, so thank you for that. And welcome back to those who are online. Right, so we've got the LTP work program, which I'm looking forward to. So we've got Melissa and Kirsty are going to present that. I'm not sure in which order. It looks like we're starting with Melissa. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. So yes, as Mayor Mike has said, this report is presenting the work program for the 27-37 long-term plan. You'll notice that there are 3 attachments to the report. So these essentially make up the work program as a bit of a collective. The key components being the deliverables table, the roadmap and the glossary. So the work program is intended to be a live document. You'll see that it kind of sets out all the key tasks or deliverables categorized by each of the component parts of the long-term plan. It is very much a live document, but it will be used as kind of the foundation for the management of the project moving forward. We'll also be presenting the work program to SPMP regularly to keep that committee across everything that's happening with the long-term plan. The roadmap document attached as Appendix 2. This is essentially replacing what we used last time as the snake diagram. So we just wanted to put a little bit more information in here to help elected members understand the kind of the key stages of the long-term plan, elected member touch points. And then there's some considerations on the second page, some questions which just the intention is to help kind of prompt your thinking as we go through each of these stages of the project. And then the outputs to see what, or to give you oversight as to what the actual deliverable outputs are for each stage as well. The intention is that that will be printed and laid on the tables in front of you at each workshop. So it's kind of a reference document that you can keep coming back to. And then the glossary, obviously through a long-term plan, we speak a bit of a different language. So the glossary is there to help you understand kind of what we're talking about from a language perspective. So the purpose of this report is to approve the work program today. But yeah, just noting that it is a live document moving forward. Happy to take questions.
Thanks for that, Melissa. Yeah, the roadmap, I thought it was quite Christmassy colours. It was quite good, actually. But any questions for Melissa or for Kirsty? Ian?
This is probably for Kirsty and a little bit Joe, actually, which was just in terms of the workshops that are listed here, and this is a bit of crystal ball gazing, the other workshops that we think we might need, is that going to fit in the schedule that we put together there, or are we expecting that there is more workshops that we're going to need to try and work into the agenda for next year?
So the intention is that we would be looking to schedule these days on workshop days that have been approved as part of the meeting calendar, the intention with the meeting calendar. So yeah, there may well be additional times that we need to have a workshop, but as much as possible, we will be endeavouring to incorporate them within that focus day.
Thank you.
Or on the end of an SPNP meeting by way of example.
And thank you for these work products. They're really good.
Joe.
I just wanted to say a quick thank you for the roadmaps. I much prefer this one than the snake one from last time. It's really good, as well as the decision flow and the glossary. Those things are so helpful, and to have them, you know, before this process begins is great. So thank you very much for that.
Anyone else? Oh, Monty, sorry.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, Dale Murray.
Okay. Is there, can we have a commitment to a draft engagement plan in regards to mana whenua? Say like a draft before the middle of next year? Yeah.
Based on previous discussions that I've had with Nita and Erin, I think that's quite reasonable. Yep.
Choice. Thank you.
Monty.
Thanks, Mike. A couple of points. On your roadmap, I see audits kicking in at stage 5 and 6. I've been banging on about this endlessly in Risk and Assurance Committee, so I'm going to do it here as well. Pretty keen to see early auditor engagement on our growth assumptions. So is coming in at stage 5 realistic for that?
So I think, are you talking about this part here? Yeah. So that's kind of the technical components. The intention is very much to engage with our audit partners early in the new year. So we'll get them across the work program and have these ongoing conversations with them. And we're also looking to see where they can kind of give us feedback on component parts. So like the forecasting assumptions, as an example, if they can have a look at that before the audit. So seeing what we can kind of get them across as we work through the process as well. So very much the intention is to engage with them early on.
Yeah, we had a pretty decent discussion with them in Risk and Assurance Committee with Renee, the auditor, and she was very open to the idea of early engagement on particular subjects and the ability to sign them off early. And just my second question is just back to your deliverables chart. It was around the business cases. I can't find it now. Business cases, EM business case workshop, kind of September, and business cases approved. This is something we've sort of been talking about the role of EMs in the traffic lighting of business cases, the yes or no. And I noticed that down there you've got responsibility as to be confirmed. Are you able to give us any sense of where you're heading on that, or would you rather leave that as a TBC at this stage?
I'd probably prefer to leave that as a TBC at this stage. There will be a conversation around that tomorrow with staff.
Okay, we'll keep pursuing that through SPMP. Cool, thanks.
Maybe just to also add to that, that we do have a program or project governance group with elected member representation on it. And so through this process, as well as formal reporting through and workshops with SPMP, there is also elected member input led by Mayor Mike as co-sponsor of this project. You'll see that we have provided for some foundational pieces right up front. We've listened to the feedback that you've provided in terms of financial strategy, infrastructure strategy. Flowing on from that are the AMPs and then the business cases. So we acknowledge that, and I guess that's why to be confirmed for further conversations to happen. But absolutely, we've heard what you've said, and we'll be providing clarification on that.
Any further questions for either Melissa or Kusi? Right, thank you both for that. So look, can I call for a mover and a seconder on page 284, A through C for the recommendation? Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Pip. Well, oh, sorry, no, that's fine. And now, look, discussion on this. Look, while I've just got this open, I'll just make a quick point that the deliverables table shows the complexity, the longevity, I guess, and the work that needs to be put into landing a effective LTP. It's an immense piece of work that you can see goes across the whole organisation, hey, including us, but we're sort of touch points in this. So yeah, and it really kicks off. It's really started really, but at the start of next year, this really starts in earnest. So I'm just acknowledging the pressure that an LTP puts on the organisation. And we have to land it. So, so yeah, thinking ahead and thinking in advance of what's coming. So, right, any other questions or any other discussion or debate or anything around this? Roger.
No, just a point for Ian. You think the reading's been a lot for the annual report? Prepare yourself.
Well said, Roger. All right, so I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, so now actually we're heading to page 303 to 307. And again, we've got Melissa and Kirsty back up, and that's a review of the district halls funding, which has been brought to us in the past. Over to you both.
Thank you. So through the deliberations for the 25-34 long-term plan, at the time council resolved to undertake further work with respect to the targeted rates for our community halls. So for those of you who may not be aware, our community halls are funded from targeted rates. So we include a targeted rate on the rates. We then take that revenue and then gift it back to the hall committee, sorry. What the long-term plan submission process identified is that there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done around putting some robustness and some structure in place around how our community halls are funded. Through the long-term plan deliberations, council resolved to do that work as part of the annual plan or the long-term plan amendment. This report is essentially seeking approval to defer that work as part of the 27-37 long-term plan. Yeah, that's probably all I'll say on that. Happy to take questions.
Dale Marie.
Keen to move it.
Thank you. When the time comes, thank you very much. We have a mover when the time comes, and Claire.
Yes, thanks. I'm really pleased to see this item because you know, my ward is the rural, one of the rural ones, and community halls are really important. And I do know that a number of them have made approaches to me, actually. They're concerned about their, I suppose, their financial sustainability and things like that over the longer term. And, you know, they do tremendous work. Like, they're absolutely amazing champions for their communities, but they can see, mostly it's actually, some of them have been affected by those drinking water standards, you know, because some of them have just got tanks and things like that. And then they have the ongoing maintenance as well. And I was in touch with Julie, one of the community advisors, because, yeah, there was an issue for Koramatua Hall. And I was really delighted to hear that she's been working with those hall committees and yeah, getting a lot more better information. So I'm just wanted to say I'm really pleased this work is happening. It is really important for our rural communities.
I'll maybe just respond to that point, and thank you, Claire, for sharing the discussion and the work that Julie's been doing. So I think part of the reason for recommending that this be deferred to the long-term plan is to ensure that we undertake a fulsome process and actually engage and connect with those committees at place and hear from them what their needs are, recognising this might not be a case of one size fits all. So to do it appropriately.
Joe, and then Shane.
Thanks. I was just going to agree with Councillor Clare. Some of those halls are maintained by such an amazing group of volunteers, and on the community board when we did our rural tours, going out and meeting some of those people and their dedication to their areas. And some of them are incredibly old, you know, like Te Pahu, I think is, you know, 1911. So they're very, very old halls. My question was, and you kind of answered it, but I'd like just to hear a little bit more about the review that's mentioned in the report. Like, how detailed is that? Are you going and meeting with every single hall committee, sitting down with them? Is it more of an on-paper assessment?
Yeah, so our community advisors have connected with the halls individually. They're looking to continue those discussions with them, and we're looking to work in collaboration with our advisors. We may as well go to the community hall committees all together. So the intention is to be in person, whether that be as a collective or one-on-one, not quite sure yet, but yeah, probably more detailed kind of engagement at that end of the spectrum.
Will you be encouraging some of those people to come and submit and present at hearings and things like that so we can hear from them as well directly?
I think absolutely as you know, when we get to that point in the long-term plan, yeah, just depends on kind of what happens between now and then.
Of course, yeah. Thank you.
Shane.
In terms of the review, I think it would be very interesting to understand their management structure, you know, how they're set up, the amount of time the halls are used to actually get a feel for if they actually need to be continued or if there may be some other options in terms of those halls. 3, from a health and safety perspective, you know, are they healthy? Are they safety? Because that's all our responsibility. And also to get them to a standard, what would be the estimated cost? And so we've got to make sure the questions we're asking are the same for all halls. So we've got a table and understanding, you know, where the issues are, et cetera, But the management structure, I'll be very interested to see because, you know, it relies on those individuals and some will be stronger than others in terms of doing the job. And just so one other question, I see that they have requested targeted rate changes. Is that something they are able to do, or do they need to talk to the community who have to pay those rates to get them to agree as well? I'm not sure what the process is.
Absolutely agree with you, Shane. This review will be looking at all of those things that you've just mentioned.
Just to answer Shane's last part of that question, though, like they've sort of alluded to the fact that they would have liked a rate increase. I think that's your question. Any impact by delaying this or?
Sorry, what is the question?
My question's, I guess, twofold. I think Mike's added a second layer. The first layer was to understand legalities of it. So they can request it, but do they have to go through a process to get their community to agree to something that they can have to pay? And the second part of it, is there a sense of urgency in terms of them needing money now and us delaying that? Will that cause them issues?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we need to work through. So we haven't, through the submission process for the long-term plan, we didn't get robust enough information to be able to make that determination in terms of what their actual needs are. Some of the halls committees did request increases to their targeted rate to be able to fund maintenance and the likes, but at the time, those targeted rates were not increased. We didn't kind of have the information to be able to support that decision properly and needing to take a comprehensive review. In terms of legally, what's required around consulting with the community to increase those targeted rates, I don't think there's anything in place in the moment. I've heard of one example where they've got to make a decision at their AGM, but I can't hand on heart say if that is across the board a requirement. So this all needs to be worked through as part of this piece of work.
Thanks, Melissa. So it's what we're hearing is collect the data and then make some good decisions. Dean.
Thank you. I've made a note early on and then listened to some of how this process has been run, but the note I made was, is this something that would be appropriate for councillors to help with? The reason I said that is, one, we've heard there's a lot of work going on. This has been deferred to as a way to probably streamline some of that work. It was good to hear that our community liaison people are involved, but you know, we've got 20 halls. If councillors got involved, we'd only have to link up with a couple and we might be able to do some of the work, and it'll be a way of engaging with the community as well, engaging with our wider community. If we had some sort of template, what do we need to know? Can we gather that information for you? We could do it firsthand. We get to meet some of the people that we might not have met before. And then we could, help collate some of that information back together. And we can ask also some of the questions that Shane asked around how their structure works, is it effective? What sort of use do they get? Those sort of questions. I mean, I think it'd be, from my point of view, I'd love to do something like that. So is it appropriate? Can we help?
It's really great to hear that feedback. We want to work in collaboration with elected members. We see, part of the bigger team of council. So that's something that we can certainly explore. I think that there's real possibility to bring in elected member involvement into that process. We've talked about the community advisors. We can also need to consider the role of community boards too, and in terms of their connection to the local communities. So that's great feedback and something we can explore and come back to you on.
Right, Dean, that sort of feeds into what Gubby is about to send us in the next day or so, off the back of our induction of the events and the interactions that we can have out in the community. And there's a template coming down to us which we can plug into. Though that's probably not in there. It's maybe in the future, it's something that could be put in there. So thank you for that. Right, thank you for that, Melissa and Kirsty. So I do have a mover in Dale Marie. Do I have a seconder for this report? Claire, thank you very much. Now, any other discussion or debate? There being none, it's on page, what are we on? Page 303, now recommendation A and B. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Look, we've got a 5-minute break in here, but we're not going to have it because we only broke 25 minutes ago, so we shall carry on. And then we're sort of back on time also. So council delegations, update for December 2025. So if I can ask Diana to come to the table. And we've got about 5 minutes sit down for this. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou. So the purpose of my report is to seek authorisation to update the delegations and the appointments to the Shareholder Representative Forum for Waikato Waters Limited. It's quite a small report, so I'll take it as read and very happy to take any questions.
I think this is fairly straightforward, so we might just run this in one hit. Are there any questions? Any debate? Any discussion? No. Oh, Monty?
Sorry. Just on the Waikato Waters done well, the shareholders, the SRF. Sorry, I was reading. Am I in the right place? Yep. This came up at I attended the SRF on Mike's behalf, and there's actually quite a significant issue because the SRF has voting rights on various things. And so we are delegating to the mayor or the alternate to bind us as shareholders. That's how this is reading. And we debated this a little bit at the SRF because there was a bit of talk about what things had to have been discussed around the council table before or not. So I mean, this is a full delegation for you to vote on our behalf on anything. And if you come back and we say we don't like it, that's just too bad, right?
Correct. So, yeah, so look, anything significant, I'd need to get a sort of decent feel of the room. Anything significant, the agenda, I'd sort of come back to you folks. But ultimately, what you've said is correct. There's a delegated authority to make a decision based for Waipa District Council.
And look, I don't have a problem with that. And I totally trust you to have been discussing things with us. But, the statement of expectations is the obvious one that we would be expecting to understand before you go in there and vote for. Yeah.
No, absolutely valid comments. Claire.
Yeah, and just following on really about the pretty important or profound impacts that it might have for our relationship, with this Waikato Waters entity, because we all agreed that Mayor Mike was delegated that authority to do it, but what this report is saying is that if you can't make it, and it's not necessarily going to be Deputy Mayor Joe, it's going to be someone else. Yeah, and so the responsibility there is also, yeah, pretty high as well. So if there was a situation where you weren't able to attend, so it was the alternate. So is there any process or requirement that the alternate is briefed, or do they have complete freedom to vote? You know, like what are those sort of safeguards, guardrails, or and also you mentioned that you'd be looking to read the room or get a bit of a feel for what elected members felt. You know, it's not necessarily then that the alternate might not have been in the room at the time, you know, like you don't know. So you'd be then passing it on to the alternate. So what are the safeguards there?
I would expect that we would follow just due process clear. We always need to make sure the mayor is briefed. We always need to make sure that the mayor has got confidence that he's read the room and had council's feedback on key matters. And that should the mayor not attend, which is the intention that the mayor will attend, right? This is a safeguard. It's not intended that every second month it'll be somebody else. It just can't work like that. This is a large infrastructure business. It's in formative stages. It's really important the mayors form the shareholder forum and they form a really tight group as that forum. So if on occasion it was somebody else that needed to attend on the mayor's behalf, we would absolutely make sure that they were briefed and that they were given an update as to all the historical information they needed and then took the mayor's guidance as to what to vote on. Because there would be an agenda release prior to the meeting. We'd know what that delegate was up for and we would brief them accordingly.
Cool. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, thanks for that explanation.
Right, thanks for that. Good questions, Monty, and clear. So look, at page 300, I think it's 8, A through E. The recommendations, there is quite a few of them. Happy we move them all together. Yep, all right, so A through E. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Joe, Monty, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, and thank you, Diana. All right, so now we move on to a late item. Okay, it's a request for a new private road name at 190 Victoria Road, Cambridge. It's, what page are we on for that?
Right at the end of the agenda.
Yeah, 336. And it's Tony and Nita. Thank you. 336, was it?
Nita's just my support person, so thank you. So I will take the report as read. It's essentially what typically goes through the Service Delivery Committee in terms of endorsing a name, but it follows on the back of that service delivery meeting and us not having the report in time for that, but making sure we're getting it done before Christmas and getting the name through. It's also sort of just some work in the background around what considerations with Mana Whenua going forward and iwi, and working closely with Neta in terms of bridging those relationships and showing how we're working towards a more streamlined process, both internal, but it will be a collaborative approach amongst all. It won't just be council, there'll be developers in the mix as well. So the report's recommendation is around approving the name Bardui Drive, which is largely complete, the road. It will follow a formal subdivision application to get the road legalised, but it enables the road name blades to be placed now because the commercial activity is currently ongoing. So that just helps with the logistics at this present time. It also, while we can't bank names or proceed names under the current legislation and our road naming policy, it incorporates endorsing the name for future roads of Tahua and making sure that we have a solid background in terms of what the recommending report writers will have in the future for that. And it shows some general areas as well as to where those names could apply. Yeah. So happy to take any questions.
Look, thank you, Tony, because what I hear there is you're dealing with the current state, but you're also dealing with the future roads in and around the area, which actually makes total sense and trying to get people on board from the get-go. So well done with your efforts there. Any questions? Ian?
Yeah, I was just wondering in terms of the change from the Service Delivery Committee to now, and the I don't know if it's a compromise with regards to who it was. Was that a contentious topic that we had to resolve, or was it just a matter of timing, or what's the sort of underlying situation there?
So it's, I wouldn't say it's contentious. There is relationships that need to form. That is a given. It's always a little bit tricky with how you try and approve documents and the legislative timeframes that you have to get a road report in, et cetera. Like, business doesn't just work to council committee reports. So that this is a bit of a unique scenario where we're taking it up here, but it was the next best available that we could take it up. Otherwise, we're waiting a few months before we get back in front of you to do the same thing. And what does that do in terms of compromising the business in that time period as well? And the following subdivision application, is that a hold up in terms of when that gets legalised? So that's more on that side of the of what's happening. Nita, is there anything further you want to discuss on any contention? Yeah.
I think for our iwi partners, understanding that we're not operating at a like-for-like capacity is something really important. And in this particular instance, iwi did feel that we as council could have done a little better. And I think that's a really fair assessment on us. That's why I'm here. That's why Erin's here. And so I do think we can take a hopeful approach. And I do really hope and expect that council will hold me and my team to account to do that. I think we're making good improvements in that direction. And I do think our iwi partners' assessment of the situation is a fair one. I also am really supportive and want to encourage council to approve the name Tuhua, because I think that gives an indication that we are still serious about partnership. Yeah.
If I could just follow on quickly, Mike. Great, thank you. So I guess just two follow-ons from that one, which is there anything in terms of that, nurturing that relationship? Is there any more feedback we should seek, or is it just a case of making sure that we do a better job next time round? And subsequent piece, understanding that there's nothing we can do from a legislative point of view in terms of, earmarking a road for that name. What steps have we taken to make sure that that commitment is, absolutely honoured and clearly so?
So I suppose to the point around the legislative restrictions, the report's recommendation and endorsement helps streamline that as best as practically possible. That is essentially the arm that we can, or the lever that we can pull in that regard. There, as Nita's put it in some emails, it's a bit of a journey with the rest of it. It will be trying to break down some of those initial sort of tensions that are there, but it's great to have Nita and his team to help sort of bring those walls down and open up those conversations to actually grow those relationships further. Yeah.
Thank you.
Kia ora for that. Joe.
Thanks, Tony. I just wanted to ask, how long has that road been open for people to use?
So it's technically not open. It's technically a very big driveway for that road at the moment. So it's there used as the main entrance, and it's done so and enabled to do so earlier than anticipated because of the manufacturing that's going in there at the moment. So that's why there hasn't been an easement put over place for council to be a grantee to it or whatever. It stays on private land currently, and it's part of their resource consent conditions for the initial APL building was at the first opportunity that the road is of a fit for purpose nature to start funneling traffic down that way. Because previously the logistics was bringing it around up through the state highway, around Zigzag, back down Swain, and then back at the past entrance through there. Sometimes that had complications where they had a few people running through Swain Road and Norfolk Drive and interfering with some general residential, which is not what we want to see. So it's a basis of trying to use that entrance for its purpose at the moment. And it really depends on the timing for when they want to lodge that subdivision, but we know it's imminent given Plan Change 17 and how that's progressing through with the wider subdivision and what this road's designation and classification comes under that plan change.
Okay, great, thank you.
Really good explanation. Right, thank you, gentlemen. Look, and thanks for the work that's gone on there too in a pretty short time. Thanks to iwi, thanks to the developers, and to the staff and Nita and others involved. Yeah, kia ora koutou. Appreciate, you know, everything's about learning and it's about continuous improvement, and that's what we're seeing here. So, and that sort of answers your questions too, Ian. So, all right. So thank you, team. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate that.
So any other questions among us or Dean?
This is just a comment, actually, but my little note here, it says the maps are too small. So basically, so in diligence, they don't really show up that well. Some areas I know and some I don't. And this is one that I didn't know that well, even though I've been there. And I just thought if we could get a link or something to Google Maps, because that's what I end up doing anyway, so I could actually work it out, because they're actually quite hard to spot and to see the writing on them. That was all.
Right, noted. So we'll get that up to whoever's putting these together. I mean, you can use two fingers but oh, they've got a touch screen. Oh, I can't.
Yeah. Control plus.
All right, all right. That's another Control Plus. Just what we're trying to sort everything out here right now. Right. So page 337. No, actually, I need to move in the seconder for a start. Move in the seconder. So Joe and Claire. I think we've done the discussion bit. All those in favour? Again.